Now it gets worse because Rumler was also involved in shutting this dude up. This is Jean-Luc Brunel, and Brunel was about to blow the whistle on Epstein. We got the Wall Street Journal's reporting on this in their exclusive, saying the accomplice who was going to testify against Epstein then went dark. French model scout called Jean-Luc Brunel was negotiating to provide prosecutors with evidence against Epstein back in 2016, 3 years before he was finally arrested, ultimately in 2019, and then he was later, dead in his jail cell, allegedly, but ultimately backed out. And who is all over this? Obama's lawyer. Here's the story. Jean-Luc Brunel was ready to turn on the man who had been his patron and partner. The French modeling scout was prepared to tell prosecutors what he knew about Epstein's trafficking. Brunel was secretly negotiating at 16 with lawyers representing Epstein's victims, according to newly released Justice Department files. And Rumler's all over it. Brunel's lawyers told them his client recruited girls for Epstein and had incriminating photographs, so he could have saved years of abuse. They discussed a date for Brunel to walk into a U.S. attorney's office in New York, and he would testify if they would give him immunity. But then all of the hush money comes out. One of Epstein's BFs, Jean-Luc Brunel, in this email, has helped get girls, and he is wanting to cooperate. These come from handwritten notes that were taken by a federal prosecutor in 2016. Nothing happened. Total cover-up. Brunel is afraid of being prosecuted. And then all of a sudden, Brunel goes dark. So we've got evidence here, redacted, question, no end, question. Here's the story from a prosecutor wrote this down. Says one of Epstein's BF, Jean-Luc Brunel, has helped get girls. He is wanting to cooperate. Wouldn't cooperate, deny involvement, was served for a deposition, maybe, DEP, redacted. Hard to read, something goes on, and he no-showed. Then in 2015, Brunel something Jeffrey Epstein for obstruction of justice, maybe sued Jeffrey Epstein and encouraged him not to go to the deposition. He says the lawyer paid by Epstein helped him into missing the deposition. Okay, so Epstein comes out. Now they're battling this out, and they try to silence him. Now, still representing, Brunel hired this other lawyer, Joe somebody, in Miami for the lawsuit. And then they contacted Brad Edwards, and two of them met. Brad Edwards is a lawyer for the victims. Brad for somebody, Titan says that his client has photographic evidence, doesn't know the ages of the girls, maybe young, and that Brunel took photos without knowledge of the subjects. This person doesn't know how to handle this. Brunel wants Epstein prosecuted and something money. Confidential, now released, handwritten notes from a federal prosecutor who then did nothing about it for years, allowing Epstein and his people to continue to make their abuses occur. Now, Epstein had discovered that negotiations with Brunel were taking place, saying, they're going to talk about immunity and other things. On May 3rd, he fired off an email. Who does he call? Oh, Kathy Rumler. Yeah, the fixer in Obama's White House, an attorney that he responded with regularly. He wrote that Brunel was planning to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office the following week, and one of Brunel's friends had asked for $3 million so that Jean-Luc Brunel would not go in. Epstein told Rumler that Brunel was afraid he would be arrested if he didn't show up. He said, I want to know more. Epstein sent to her. He also dismissed Brunel's lawyer and his friend as scammers and cast doubt on their credibility. It sounds like he's got photos and he was actually very credible based on what he knew. Rumler responded just hours later. This is Obama's top lawyer. There's pictures of him all over the place, asking Epstein to call and explain. She says, what do you need? Tell me about it. The next day she wrote, awake now, talking to Poe in 20 minutes. Gregory Poe was Epstein's lawyer in Washington, D.C. All this is happening in 16. She left the White House in 14 and then was in contention to be the AG. Of course, 16, by the time 16 is coming around, we've got elections just months away. Trump's going to win, beat Hillary Clinton, come into office in January 2017. So the email exchange looks like this. May 3rd, Epstein emails immediately to Catherine Rumler says, I spoke with Michael Kodish, John Luke's friend, question. He said that Boyes, which is a law firm, got Jean Luke full immunity if they can get him to testify, and they were going to take him to the U.S. Attorney's Office the next day. Last week, they said it was this week. He asked for $3 million, the friend, so that John Luke would not go in. Neither he nor John Luke, lawyer T-Tone, are capable of telling the truth. It sounds like maybe they are. However, he said that John Luke was worried that if he didn't go in on Tuesday, that they would arrest him. They are scammers. However, as Sigrid in camera gave what she said was info to the judge, an investigation, I want to know more. So he calls Obama's lawyer, his fixer. She says, I really don't want to talk about this over the emails. She responds, Kathy Rumler, instantly. A couple hours later, 2:28, Epstein sends his email. 7:41, Kathy Rumler responds, call me when you get a minute to explain this. Like, what the hell's going on? Then she says, when awake. Epstein says, when awake. Like, when awake. She says, awake now. I'm talking to your lawyer in 20 minutes. And probably fiction, but nope, he's going in. Now, it isn't clear from the documents why Brunel ultimately kept quiet. What is clear is that Brunel didn't cooperate with the prosecutors, and Epstein remained free for another 3 years. Thank you, Catherine Rumler. And the Obama prosecutors. The Obama DOJ had handwritten notes that this dude was about to flip on Epstein. He was going to come to them with everything. Brunel took photos and testify and be a key witness. Could have stopped all this from happening in 2016. Just think of how many girls wouldn't have been abused for the remaining 3 years. Until he was arrested then in 2019. He died in jail in New York. They ruled it a suicide. Now, after Brunel stopped negotiations, he also wasn't arrested, and prosecutors didn't pursue him further, even though in the prosecutor's notes, he says Brunel has helped get girls. Okay, so yet another person who may have been trafficking, allegedly, minors or girls over to Epstein. Whether they're minors, whether it's trafficking or solicitation of minors or adult women, it's trafficking humans. Get girls is the argument. Unless they're adults and, agreeing to this, who knows what's going on. But the part of the argument is that even if they were over 18, that Epstein and these people were getting them under their, shackles, essentially, because of visas and passports and money. They fly them to the island. You got to do whatever I want or else you're not going anywhere. So he's involved. Prosecutor gets a handle of it, saying that they're going to turn this dude in. He wants to cooperate. They've already worked out immunity with the lawyers who were suing Epstein. And the whole Obama DOJ covers it up. Kathy Rumler steps in and makes it all go away. No more prosecution. That's the end of it. Now, David Boies, one of the lawyers who filed civil suits on behalf of the Epstein victims, he said it set us back a couple years. He said Brunel backed out. We know from our other lawsuits that there were more than 50 girls that were trafficked after this. Thank you, Obama DOJ. Great job for not pursuing this so that he could continue to operate completely unimpeded for the remaining 3 years and abuse 50 more women. Great job. So Brunel was a central figure in Epstein's orbit. He used his position atop a U.S. modeling agency to recruit foreign girls and young women, securing work visas and providing the appearance of real employment. The Frenchman traveled to Epstein's plane, on the plane, visited the island, and exchanged hundreds of emails with him. So he could have absolutely destroyed Epstein. The files show that federal prosecutors were briefed on the Epstein scheme in 2016 and did nothing with it. The handwritten notes detailed the trafficking operation and the allegations that Brunel and Maxwell and others recruited dozens of other underage girls. So the left today will continue to say that the Trump DOJ is responsible for all of this. Meanwhile, you got this guy who walks in, talks to a prosecutor during the Obama years, and has a binder full of evidence. And they do nothing with it. Then they say Trump is part of the Epstein class. Right. The Justice Department didn't move on Epstein until after the Miami Herald blew the lid on this thing, late 2018. Then Trump comes in. When it did arrest Epstein in 19, Brunel and Maxwell were named as co-conspirators in the investigative file as well. And we've long made the point here that they've already identified co-conspirators. A lot of people, a lot of Republicans, a lot of Democrats are saying somebody needs to be indicted. Okay, who? Well, we got another guy right now, already named as a co-conspirator in the FBI investigative file. We've got 4 other women who are facilitating the trafficking who are already named and redacted in the draft indictment. Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, Nadia Marcinkova, and the other one. And the prosecutor who took the office, took the February 2016 notes, later told the DOJ that she discussed the meeting with colleagues in the U.S. Attorney's Office, but the FBI under Obama didn't do anything. No investigation was opened at all. They covered it up. According to a 2021 government court filing, the notes about Brunel were redacted in a 2021 court filing, and a spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in New York declined to comment. Joseph Titone, Brunel's attorney, told the Wall Street Journal that he advised Brunel to cooperate and cut ties with Epstein. He said, I recommended the lawyer for the guy, stop talking to Epstein. Tell the government about this. His own lawyer. Guy says, no, not interested. Not going to do that. Brunel was then later arrested in 2020 in France. French prosecutors were investigating him on allegations of and supplying girls to Epstein. He died in jail 2022. Maxwell found guilty in 2021. And of course, that was a mop-up operation. The person who prosecuted Maxwell was Maureen Comey. That's FBI Director James Comey's daughter. Who was the FBI director when all of this investigation was not opened? James Comey. Saying here, of course, Maxwell now serving a 20-year sentence. Comey's the same guy who wanted to set President Trump up and is also in the emails as going to be flipping his testimony to say Trump tried to pressure Comey to stop the investigation into Michael Flynn. And that led, of course, to the entire Russia collusion hoax from the first place. It's a web of disgusting corruption. Prosecutors in Paris on Saturday said that they would re-examine the case of Brunel and set up a special team to analyze evidence that could implicate French nationals in the Epstein case. This was another instance of Epstein attempting to engage Rummler on a matter about which she had no knowledge, and she appropriately directed him to the legal counsel, said her spokesperson again. She declined to specify what lawyer. Rummler said she never represented Epstein as his lawyer, which they were trying to paper. Well, so what if she's a lawyer? She's allowed to represent everybody, and regretted her association with him. Now, as the extent of her relationship with Epstein became clear in recent files, Rummler said last week she would resign in June, needs to make sure she can bank a couple more months of cash. Poe said that he didn't talk with Rummler or Epstein about Brunel anytime. He said that he had a scheduled call on that day with Rummler to discuss work on a legal motion to quash a subpoena going to Epstein, but my engagement with Epstein was limited, Poe said, the lawyer, adding that he terminated work for Epstein in 2016. Now, long before his role in the Epstein case came to light, Brunel already had a sordid reputation. In 88 and 60 Minutes, he was already being investigated, saying women were being beaten with him and forcing them to have intercourse with their friends. Sick. Now, one woman said on camera that he drugged and R-ed her. No criminal charges, once again, ever filed against him. He denied the allegations, operated freely, cycling through agencies and abusing women. By the 2000s, Brunel and Epstein had forged a deep relationship. Flight logs show that Brunel was a frequent passenger on his flight. In 2005, Epstein wired $1 million over to this guy to launch a modeling company, which opened offices in New York, Miami, and other things. Even Epstein, the agency's name, appeared to be an inside joke. E equals MC squared. They called it MC2 modeling. And the E is for Epstein. Behind the scenes, he used this agency as a way to procure women, securing work visas for young women. A pair of emails from 2006 captures the arrangement. On July 13th, Epstein wrote to Brunel at the address. He says, instructing him to put a woman they were discussing on the payroll, paying her $50,000 a year. Brunel also asked Epstein whether he wanted women to work scouting models. He said, start salary as soon as possible. He said, yes, I would like to do that. He went and visited him almost 70 times. Now, after his Florida arrest in 2006, Epstein shifted focus. He went with older women in their late teens, whatever that means, and their 20s from Europe and Russia. Then he'd bring them in, make them dependent on Epstein for visas, housing, and finances, and then would send them to other men. By 2012, Brunel was a frequent communication person with Epstein. On June 7th of that same year, Joshua Fink, the son of a BlackRock CEO called Larry Fink, BlackRock's son, emailed Brunel about an invoice saying that he got a bill and he wanted to clarify or point or two about their agreement. Brunel, the model guy, told Fink he would suspend the billing. The invoice was also related to a model whom Fink was dating, that had a work visa through the agency. Okay, so Epstein brings in this model, passes it off to BlackRock's son, and then sends him an invoice for it. When Brunel forwarded the email chain to Epstein, the reply was, "Talk to me first, please." When the woman forwarded the same email that same day, Epstein replied, "This is for past, not for future. So you're paying for services rendered." Epstein was well aware of the relationship. The woman had forwarded him several chat logs with Fink. So the woman who he sent to go hang with Fink was like an insider and sending information about their relationship between Fink and the model back over to Epstein. So he's getting pumped information now from BlackRock's son. Captured the couple clashing over how serious their emails were. And here's the email. So Joshua Fink, the son of BlackRock, sent this in. Said, "Dear John Luke," from Fink to John Luke, "I hope this email finds you well. I would love to grab a bite or a drink if you are through New York City the next week. Alternatively, are you available for a quick phone call tomorrow? Thank you very much. Warmest regards, Josh." Then he responded, sent the second email. "Not sure if you got my first email. By chance, I got an invoice yesterday from MC2, Epstein's modeling agency that he funded. I would love to clarify a point or two. I don't have a full understanding of things at the moment. More than happy to pay this invoice if our agreement still stands. And there is no issue from my side if that's true. But thank you in advance for your time. Look forward to speaking with you soon." And that email is from somebody to Epstein and probably maybe John Luke. I don't know. But it continues. And Fink also wrote in a reply, "And with your visa, I have no idea what it is that I can do beyond pay your agency to supplement your income and theirs because you are not getting work as a model." He said in a reply to her. She's sending him emails. "You're not helping me enough." Now, Fink told the Journal, so Wall Street Journal reached out to this guy, said that he met the woman at a friend's dinner party, and started a romantic relationship that only lasted a year. He said, "I had no relationship with Epstein or Brunel. I'm totally shocked that she was forwarding these things to Epstein." He said he was helping the woman settle her debts, pay off loans. She wasn't working or getting enough jobs. So she asked, "Hey, could you help me settle these debts?" He said, "Oh, it was just a personal relationship, nothing more." Woman described herself to the Journal as trapped in a web of abuse. She said she had been a successful model abroad, but after signing with MC2 and getting a work visa, all the work dried up. She said Brunel charged fees without securing castings and that Epstein abused her throughout. The woman also said she met Fink on her own, independent of Epstein, saw the relationship as consensual, maybe as a way of escaping. But Epstein wanted the relationship with Fink to end, to keep her under his control, she said. When Fink proposed meeting in Paris to resolve their issues, Epstein blocked it, relationship ended, and that's it. Brad Edwards, a lawyer who's represented more than 200 victims, including the woman, said Epstein's wealth and power allowed him to infiltrate industries. Perhaps most pervasively, the modeling industry. He found John Luke a like-minded predator, and they could co-conspire to recruit and abuse women. More emails and depots. You see, Brunel and Epstein were so close in 12 that a version of Epstein's trust from that year listed Brunel as a beneficiary, saying he'd get $5 million from the trust. Around that same time, Brunel was fretting over a deposition of another woman, MC2's former financial controller and bookkeeper. Her name is Vasquez. Vasquez gave another sworn statement in 2010 in a civil lawsuit brought by one of the victims. Vasquez described how models were placed in Epstein-controlled apartments and how visas were arranged for underage girls. Earlier, Brunel had accused Vasquez of embezzling money. She pleaded guilty to a criminal charge and agreed to pay restitution. Couldn't be reached for comment for this. In 2012, Brunel also messaged Epstein, saying her lawyer said that she will take the fifth on everything. What to do? Epstein replied, "Ask every question you can think of. Did she have intercourse with the girls? Make her sit and take the fifth to every single question for hours." There's a copy of the depo here. Now, they also relied on a common recruiter, another guy called Daniel Syed, to find girls and women in other countries. Also a modeling scout, also exchanging emails. He said in one email that he had 2 girls from Sweden, a Slovakian, 2 French, and redacted the Russian with whom you spoke. Epstein said he would reimburse for all the expenses. Please send me the details of the girls' names, etc. Syed compared his recruiting efforts to fishing. He said, "In this busyness, I feel like a fisherman. Sometimes I catch quick, sometimes no fish." And the tally of his expenses was $2,700. Now, his attorney in France also didn't respond to a request for comment. And He said, I didn't know. I had no idea about these atrocities. Back in December 2014, Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's most prominent victims, filed a motion to join a lawsuit that was challenging Epstein's non-prosecution agreement that immunized the 4 co-conspirators. She said that Brunel trafficked girls as young as 12. The allegations placed Brunel in the public crosshairs, and the relationship between Brunel and Epstein frayed. Then in 15, Brunel and MC2 sued Epstein in Florida court, claiming the agency had gone from being worth millions to almost worthless, saying he lost about $10 million in profits and that photographers and scouts had cut ties with them. Brunel could no longer recruit new models because nobody trusts their daughters with somebody linked to Epstein. The following month, Titone, Brunel's lawyer, called Edwards, one of the victim's lawyers, saying that he was having trouble serving Epstein with the lawsuit and raised the possibility that Brunel possessed photographic evidence. Edwards, unsure if this was true or not, or a plot by Epstein, told the Journal he told his law partner, Stan Pottinger, and then Pottinger died in 2024. Now, the rift was temporary. The Justice Department files show by April 2015, Brunel suggested a friend mediate the dispute, and they wanted to meet. Over the year, though, they corresponded with federal prosecutors. They all tried to get Brunel to cooperate. Epstein emails Rumler. Rumler does something. Brunel ends up not cooperating. He wrote in an email to a prosecutor, said, "Yesterday I spoke of Daniel Said, whom Jean-Luc Brunel describes as a scout or a recruiter. Epstein eventually called him to discuss the lawsuit, tried to build rapport. He said he was a real charmer. And Brunel eventually settled the suit with Epstein and said all the terms were confidential. After Brunel failed to testify, Epstein continued luring victims. When Epstein was found dead, Brunel went into hiding. Then they found him and he was trying to leave the country. Ultimately, he also hanged himself in his prison cell. Isn't that a coincidence?" So as always, we see Catherine Rumler's fingerprints all over the whole thing. We got U.S. prosecutors literally taking notes about the whole thing. They bring it over to the Obama FBI, Obama DOJ. They cover the whole thing up and it goes nowhere, of course. And so here's more. The $25 million email is another big question. This was flagged for us by this fella called Sayer G over on X. And some background on this before we read the thread. You may have remembered this settlement agreement back from 2015. Went to the DOJ website, pulled this up in the archives. And what they explain is that there was a settlement between 2 banks, and it was about $45 million. These bankers were basically colluding and trying to hide payments under the table, and they got caught doing it. So what happened is the DOJ settled with them. Who facilitated the settlement? Jeffrey Epstein. And he got paid $25 million to do it. Under the program, banks are required to make complete disclosures and pay penalties and all of the things. And they entered into a non-prosecution agreement talking about these 2 groups. EDR, which is called Edmund de Rothschild, an independent family-owned financial group, works with high net worth individual clients. Founded back in 1953, operates in 19 countries, and for decades, they aided and assisted U.S. clients in opening and maintaining undeclared accounts in Switzerland, bypassing banking regulations, so that people could hide and conceal their assets. They used a bunch of means to do this, traditional products, but they would create sham entities, offshore credit cards, transfer of funds from undeclared accounts, covert repatriation of accounts, cash withdrawals, all sorts of scams. And they would even make the transactions under $10,000 so that it wouldn't be flagged by the accounts. Now, all of this went on. And so, of course, the Obama DOJ settles this and makes them pay this amount right here, $45.245 million. That's going to settle the whole thing. No one's going to get prosecuted. That's just, of course, this is criminality, right? They're intentionally trying to hide assets, but they settle it for $45 million. And nobody's paying taxes on it, and we get the point. But who facilitated that? Oh, yes, Kathy and Jeffrey. And the conversation went like this in the emails. Said, "I think you'll find from Jeffrey and de Rothschild, one of the persons who's working on the banks over there, says 45 million? He says, Epstein, I think you'll find that $45 million penalty and legal, which is Kathy plus Pillsbury, they get around 10 million. And me, I get 25 million. So it's 45 plus 10 plus 25 million, all less than 80 million. Pretty good. She says, yes, congratulations and a giant thank you. I'm relieved that it's settled and over. No one's going to jail. I just got to pay out a bunch of money. Epstein's going to make $25 million after this settlement. Sounds like Kathy Rumler was also facilitating this so that Obama's DOJ could enter into a settlement. Epstein gets paid. Kathy gets paid. No one goes to jail. She's so relieved. Then Epstein responds to her and says, good luck today. 1, let's get this closed. 2, have Kathy meet with David and his people. 3, review Rockefeller. 4, hire an asset woman. 5, do we use the DOJ and its harsh language to remove Benjamin? Benjamin ends up being another person who is on the board of the bank so that this woman can come in and take over. 6, begin a family plan. Suswin. And 7, look for partners. So it's almost like he's parlaying the DOJ settlement. He's saying, wow, there was corruption in this bank. That corruption in the bank can be used to get rid of somebody who's in the bank so that this other woman, Ariana de Rothschild, can go in and take it over. Now, she says, at least they thanked B not aboard, sleeping. Maybe Benjamin not aboard, sleeping. All these emails back in 2015, all done under Obama's DOJ. His fingerprints are all over this, which is why I think they're working in overdrive to try to blame Trump and the administration.